Ko wai au he tangata tiriti ahau, no ini ahau, e noho ana ki Tamaki Makaurau ki Kaipatiki, ko Baruch Jacob toku ingoa. A really, really warm welcome everyone who's here today. My name is Baruch Jacob, and I'm tangata tiriti from India, living here in Kaipatiki and Tamaki Makaurau at the moment. Thanks very much for those of you here today. It's really cool to be starting this conversation, and all of this started because a few years ago I started a PhD exploring innovation capability and how to grow innovation capability, and realized there's so much cool work happening across the country, across the world in innovation and growing innovation capability. And it feels like we don't have the conversations about some of these sort of the messiness of innovation and the real experience of doing it. So wanted to start having these conversations, and this first conversation we are having with Emma Anderson from Youth Employability Aotearoa is really cool because I met Emma, I think, a few months ago now at YEA Symposium, and sort of the kind of things they're trying to shift in the world and the way they're trying to do it, particularly in a resource-strapped kind of way. I just find it absolutely fascinating. And so I asked Emma if she'd be willing to be my first guest, and quite thankfully she said yes. So I'll bring Emma on now and let her introduce herself, and then we'll continue the conversation. Kia ora, Emma, welcome.
Kia ora Baruch, ko Emma Anderson toku ingoa, e noho ana o ki te awa karangi ki tai. I work, as you say, for Youth Employability Aotearoa, or YEA, as we like to call ourselves. I'm really happy and excited to be your first guest on this new show. You've got to give it a really cool name, Baruch. You have to come up with something, nice little tagline or something for this. But yeah, thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you, Emma. Yeah, we'll have to figure out a cool name. What change is a cool name? Yeah, kind of something like. No?
What?
No. What change? I'm trying to call this what change.
Oh.
Sorry, no. Yeah.
That's not encouraging.
Yeah, no, thank you, Emma, and welcome, and thank you for bringing your work and yourself to this conversation today. Tell us a little bit about YEA. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, cool. So Youth Employability Aotearoa is a systems change organisation in New Zealand, obviously. So we've been around, I think, for about 4 years. I joined in October last year. So I'm kind of new in the role. So systems change is really about how do we make systemic change in systems and processes that mean that we no longer need all these ambulances at the bottom of the cliff, right? So for YEA, the ambulances are there for the young people who are diving off the cliff because the system's not supporting them to thrive and to be successful in the world. Obviously for us, it's really about the world of work and being able to provide for their families and basic stuff like that. So we look at what barriers exist and why they're there and how we can remove those barriers by working collaboratively with central and local government, schools, businesses, anyone who sort of has those touch points with young people through their journey.
That's really cool. Thanks, Emma. And what kind of things are you trying to change for young people in the world of work? Is it quite a hard time for young people in the world of work at the moment? What's happening?
There's quite a few challenges out there. So one of the things that we find is that the school system is quite still based in that Victorian kind of mentality around you go to school to go to university, right? So this is a huge focus on academic achievement. And in reality, we only have 30 to 40% at the most of our young people actually going to university, which means our school system isn't actually catering for the majority of our young people. What that does is that it creates uncertainty in the minds of young people. So there's actually a lot of anxiety around what their future is going to look like. The TEC, the Tertiary Education Commission, did a report back in 2022 that looked at this and demonstrated that there's huge anxiety for young people around their futures and their future pathways. So young people didn't understand what opportunities there are out there, and they aren't sure how to navigate through the systems, through the education system to get where they want to go. So sometimes you'll have examples where a young person will get to their final year of school thinking they're going to apply for a particular course at university and then realise they hadn't actually done some of the prerequisite requirements for that course that they want to do. Right, so that's just the ones who wanted to go to university. And then you've got the other ones who just like go, well, I don't want to go to university, but I don't really know what else there is out there for me. There's also a lot of stigma around some of the other pathways, particularly around the trades. So it's kind of like, if you're not that bright, you'll go do a trade, you know. And then there's a lot of stigma around, like, because, you know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the Gateway program, but there's quite a bit of stigma around the Gateway program. So that's set up to capture those young people who aren't successful, inverted commas, on that academic pathway. But then that kind of gets labelled as like the kids who wouldn't be at school otherwise, right? The dropouts, right? And so it's not really valued in the school system to find this alternative pathway. Then we have problems around the way that career guidance is run in this country in schools. So it's kind of seen as like, oh, we'll do it to look good, right? So you'll have like a PE teacher or something who gets given a couple of hours a week to do the career advice for the young people. Or I was just speaking to the head of Kate, the careers advisor for New Zealand schools, and she said she used to work for a school with 2,000 students, and she was the one career advisor for all of those students, right? So a lot of career advisors in schools aren't supported by the system to be successful in their role, and their voice isn't valued within the school system either often. And I'm being very general here because obviously there are, you know, exceptions and examples where the schools are actually doing amazingly well in this space. But we're talking about inconsistency across the country. Now, I went to a TEC meeting, I think it was back in 22 or early 2023, where a lot of career advisors from schools were at that meeting, and they were all saying, like, we want some standards, we want some guidance, we want some professional support, we want clear, consistent funding as well. So what happens in schools is that, like, there's like the star funding, but often that'll get like swiped by by a department for some other purpose, like a sports team or something, right? So you don't actually have the system set up to say, you know, here's your budget line to provide good career advice for your young people. Here's a well-trained, well-resourced, you know, person to support you on this process. So that's one of the other challenges. We see that there are some principals who really want their young people to be successful in the world of work, and so they do put some emphasis into this space, but the funding model that sits behind it doesn't support that, right? So, and there's no kind of mandate from central government around this space either. So it really, and because of our curriculum being like the local curriculum, you might have heard Erica Stanford, Minister of Education, saying that she's not happy with the local curriculum. I actually personally agree with her as well. I think it's hard to get standardization, standards of excellence across the country when each individual school is left to do whatever they want to do, right? And we all hope for the best. And sometimes you get amazing leaders in schools and who really can connect well with their local community and provide great pathways for the young people. But often, because of the way the funding system is worked out and the way that the teachers are trained when they go through their pathway, teachers college, the emphasis is purely on those academic outcomes, not successful in the world of work, right? So that's the system that we're kind of looking at and going, what's really problematic for our young people, especially as I, you know, go back to my earlier point that around 60 to 70% of young people don't either go to university or remain in university, right? There's quite a large dropout rate in that first year of university. So what can we do to ensure that all our young people are pathwayed well into, you know, a successful career, whatever that may look like?
Oh, thanks, Emma. Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't realize it was that big. 60. You say 60 to 70, eh? Wow, that's massive, isn't it? Yeah. And so you're saying the things that's getting in the way of being able to, for young people doing that, is primarily funding around the career guidance? Is that the primary problem?
No, it's also the curriculum as well and how it's delivered. So there are some really great programs that the MOE has created to support young people, such as the School Leavers Toolkit, but it's not delivered across New Zealand, right? So it sits there, but if you go into the MOE website, you'll see there's a whole lot of tools, right? And they all say, MOE does not endorse any one particular tool. And so what you'll find is that a lot of teachers just won't use them. A lot of teachers will, or career advisors will, create their own tools and so on. And that actually puts a lot of pressure on our teachers to be the creators of the educational resources as well as delivering the resources. I had a conversation with Minister Chris Bishop just yesterday actually around this, and he was saying, that what we hear from a lot of the teachers is that they want more support and guidance in the creation of the learning programs so that they can really focus on the delivery and engaging with those students and supporting their learnings and growth, right, which makes sense. So that's, to hark back to what I was saying before, we want to see, more, mandated across the whole country, like what good looks like, and delivering it to the schools to enable them to provide this, good learning programs for our young people. One of the other barriers that we see and we hear a lot about are businesses who say that they're quite frustrated with their young employees, that they find that they struggle to communicate well with them, that they struggle to engage them as well and to work with them. They say that a lot of young people just don't have some of the basics that they're looking for. And what that typically means are the basic employability skills. So that's communication, teamwork, resilience, thinking skills, creative skills. A lot of businesses are happy to teach the, often they're called like hard or soft skills, right? So soft skills are those like teamwork, communication skills. And the hard skills are like the technical skills, right? I prefer to call the soft skills power skills because I think everybody needs them. And they're like, if you don't have them, you're really stuffed and you can't do anything. Whereas, so the technical skills, the businesses are usually happy to do that, right? So you get into a new job and they'll show you what computer programs you're using, or how to use the till, or how to use this piece of machinery, right? They don't mind doing that. What they don't want to teach the young people is how to communicate, how to work with the team, how to show up on time, how to show some initiative if something's going wrong to try to fix it themselves, how to ask questions, all that kind of stuff. And they say that a lot of the young people just don't come to them with these skills. And that's a huge problem. So that's the other reason why I want the curriculum to embed these skills into that younger cohort, so that they come ready armed with these practical skills. Another one is driver licensing, but we might be more come on to that at another time. But so what we want to do is to support businesses to understand how to work with young people as well, because there's two sides to the coin, right? There's getting the young people prepared and ready, but then having an environment that's supportive of them once they land there. So we are saying like the schools should be taking, not schools, like the education system should be taking a more responsive role around ensuring that young people are trained in these soft skills or power skills. And then what we want to say to businesses as well, we also need you to be a hospitable environment for these young people when they land with you. Because I used to work for a neat organisation called Youth Inspire. And we would teach them these employability skills over a course of about 14 weeks. We put them into work experience. We build up their confidence, get them to a point where they're like really ready for work, put them into a job, and then they last a couple of days. And you're like, hang on, we taught these guys resilience, what's going on here? And you have a conversation, you find out somebody called them a dick because they forgot something or dropped something or whatever, right? And that just because, especially with these young people we're working with, they're very vulnerable young people, really doesn't take a lot to knock their confidence. And so then it just came back to having conversations and then, getting them back in and they'll be okay. But it's about making sure our businesses understand that this new young generation, for better or for worse, or for good or bad, whatever, they actually need a lot of positive reinforcement. Well, I think more so than previous generations. And I don't think it really matters the why, it's just the fact is that they do. And I don't think it hurts anybody to positively reinforce them, right? But they also need to understand better the way that these young people communicate, and the number of times that I've just said to businesses, are you calling them? Yeah, I am calling them, not answering the phone. I said, well, text them. And they'll be like, oh. And suddenly they're texting them and they get the response and it's all good, right? So I think it's about helping our businesses to understand this new generation, how to work with them, create a hospitable environment for them. And I'm being a little bit facetious and giving some really basic examples, and it's more complex than that. But that's another topic of conversation. So school system and employer, like HR practices, I guess, for want of a better word, especially in New Zealand, because of course we're full of SMEs. So you've got a lot of businesses that are set up by doers, not by managers, right? People managers. And so that, they're busy doing a job, they just need people to come and help because their business is growing. And then they find this young person and there's this real disconnect between the two in terms of how they function, how they approach things. So yeah, I think what we're doing, we've got some plans in place to sort of support businesses around how to create some good HR practices easily and simply, whether they're a large organization or a small organization, that can make a huge difference in terms of their, recruitment and onboarding and progressing of young people in the workplace.
Yeah. Thanks very much for that, Emma. I might just go to some of the comments that have come in. So I've been asked to please do not call it What Change, apparently. So will not. I'm not sure who it is. So I'm hoping they have a better name for me. There's also quite a bit of, people are loving what you said about power skills. I think the power skills, as you say, that will enable people, young or old, to thrive in a workplace, adaptability and resilience is key. So I think you're hitting quite a chord there. Folks, if you're watching this also, please put in questions for Emma if you'd like. We'll try and cover as much as we can. Emma, the one thing that does come to me is like, so you talked about you're doing some courses for young people. So what does YEA do in this space? So you're obviously you're advocating in the sort of curriculum space and the business space. Are there other ways what else are you doing?
Yeah, okay. So we don't actually, run programs. So we have a network of youth employability providers that we represent, but we also are very engaged with like the workforce development councils, MOE, TEC, MB, etc. So in terms of like systems change, we're trying to influence policymakers, basically, and decision makers to change, to remove these barriers, to make it easier for young people, to become employed and to become, thriving members of our community. And as we say to the government, taxpayers, yeah. So yeah, I think in some weird kind of way, it's almost like our network that we represent. It's kind of like we want them to not exist anymore. Well, at least we want their need to be less, right? There's always going to be a need. There's always going to be young people who will fall through the cracks, right? There's always going to be those young people who need that extra support and extra guidance. But what I saw on the front line was some young people who, if they had just had these skills taught to them at school, they would have been on the dole for the last 3 years. They would have been employed immediately. And the one piece of feedback used to get continuously from the young people was, why don't they teach us this at school, right? So for me, it's like, and we used to have like some young people who had graduated through university or had graduated from the Polytech with their IT degree, who came to us because they were still lost. They still didn't know how to work in a team, how to communicate well, how to really start that job hunt process, what that really looked like. They didn't have the confidence to take themselves to interviews. They didn't have the confidence to door knock. So we had these young people who just really our service shouldn't be supporting them. Do you know what I mean? Like it really should have been there for those real high need young people. And there will always be, sadly, society is such as it is, that there's always going to be that need there. But I just want to see that young people across the board are supported through school to be successful in the world of work. If that makes sense.
Oh, it totally does, and absolutely. And I love that you're doing sort of shifting. You're trying to shift the system around the young people rather than sort of interventionist approach, I suppose. And I suppose how can other people help? How can we help in some of this stuff?
Yeah, cool. So we currently have an open letter to the coalition government that we're gathering signatures for. So that's on our website. I think you said you'll be able to pop the link in at the end of this. So people can go there. We're really looking for organisations to sign this as opposed to just massive individuals. The reason being that this isn't a petition, right? It is a bit different being an open letter. And we have some amazing organisations signing up already. And what we know is that the government is probably more inclined to stand up and listen to, a cohort of organisations who they respect and whose voices they're interested in listening to, than just a general petition of random New Zealanders who are asking for this. And that's not to say there might not be a place for that at some point, but our focus at the moment is on this open letter. Part of it as well is that our approach isn't so much activist. It's more we're more about partnerships and collaboration with central and local government as opposed to trying to be that activist support movement. Not to say that one's better than the other. That's just who we are and how we operate. Yeah. So yeah, if you're with an organisation that believes that young people in schools should be receiving the support to get employability skills training, really good career guidance. And also the third thing I'd just like to touch on is the driver license as well. So I'm the co-chair of the Driving Change Network, which is another systems change organisation set up to address the inequities in our driver licensing system in Aotearoa. So we really want to see driver licensing being accessible to young people at school. And it's not to say that we're asking schools to teach this. We're not. We've got a huge network of over 450 community driver licensing providers who can support young people to get their driver license. So we're looking to create partnerships between government and ourselves and schools so that young people have access to the driver license, because 70% of jobs in New Zealand require a driver license. So if you don't have a driver's license, it makes it really hard to get a job. Plus, a lot of our young people are falling into the justice system by not having a driver license or not having the correct license and breaking the rules of the license that they're on. I used to find that when I was frontline at Youth Inspire, is that we'd always have young people who had fallen into the system through often driving with passengers that they shouldn't have repeatedly, or driving without a license, all that kind of stuff. And it's just crazy that you end up in the justice system for something like this. So, we really want to have an impact in that space as well. So, those are the three things that we're really asking for: employability training in schools, driver licensing access in schools, and really good career advice as well and support within schools. So yeah, if that sort of floats your boat, please jump onto our website and have a read of the open letter. And if you're happy to support, just click on the button and send me the details, and then I'll add you in. And we're presenting that to Parliament on the 28th of May. So it's Youth Week next week. So we'll be, creating a bit of a buzz during that week to get some more signatures on there. And then following that, we'll be delivering to Louise Upston, who, in her capacity as the head of the Labour Market Ministers Group, LMMG. So that consists of herself, Erica Stanford, the Minister of Education, Minister of TC, so that's Penny Simmons, and Shane Jones is in there as well.
Thanks very much for that, Emma. Yep, folks, I don't know if I can post a link on LinkedIn, but it is yea.org.nz, and I've got a QR code up, I think, top left of my screen. First time doing this, folks. There's a QR code. You should be able to click on that. To be able to scan that and go to a thing. Also, just to Emma's comment, this is not so much an activist thing as organizations that are involved with and all of that. There's a couple of questions and thoughts have come up. I'm just going to bring this up from Ananya Pare. Any insights on how COVID affected young people and what interventions are in place to deal with that?
Yeah, there's been quite a bit of research, both internationally and domestically, around the impacts of COVID. If you go onto our website, we've got a page with research on there, and you'll find some articles. One of the biggest impacts was around the school attendance, but it's not it's not across the board. That can be quite regional. Like I've had conversations with some schools who've said, oh, our attendance has always been troublesome. So the COVID didn't really affect it. It always was pretty bad. And then other schools who obviously did see an impact there. But one of the biggest challenges is around the level of needs that we're seeing young people who come to those NEET organisations, the youth employability organisations that we represent. They're saying that the young people who are coming through have more complex needs than ever and are more challenging to work with than ever. So I've had some really extreme examples from some who've said that the young people are barely verbal, like they struggle to have a conversation with a human face to face, that they're incredibly withdrawn, that it's not, like often when we'd start a program, we'd see massive transitions from when they came in to when they leave, but some of these young people are coming in that are almost like, how do you even start to work with them? So it's been quite shocking in terms of that impact, and it's had that real long tail that people keep talking about. And we are quite concerned about, that group, how much education they're missing, because there's some stats, can't remember off the top of my head, around the chances of you getting a job if you have like at least NCA level 1 and 2, and there's a lot of young people who have left school without any NCA level. So we're already seeing it hit the NEET rate. So that's those not in employment educational training. That rate's already starting to creep up, and it's probably going to get even more so as those young people are leaving the ages of 16, 17. They're hitting that 18 mark where they can access the benefit, and that's when we start to see those numbers there rising, unfortunately. What's being done about it? Well, we've got our network who support them. We are worried about what funding is going to be available in the coming future with all the cuts that we've already seen, and the budget's going to be announced the 30th or the 31st of this month. Yeah, and from one of the ministers I've heard, it's very grim. So yeah, I'm a bit concerned that our sector is going to be hit hard, and that means that the young people will miss out. So sorry, I don't have better news for you on that front. It's still a problem here and overseas, and I think it's going to continue for a while.
Yeah, it is a bit grim out there generally. And I think partly to what you're saying, also this interesting comment from Greg, who's sort of saying, is hybrid working better for older people than young workers?
Yeah, it's a funny one, because it's like you sort of, you don't really necessarily want the young people to be not in an office environment, or in not office, but in an environment where there are the teams and there's that real life interaction and so on. Personally, I work 100% from home, and I enjoy working from home. I also enjoy the interaction. So I should explain, I'm a team of one. So I have a stewardship group, a board who manages me and supports me, but basically I'm it. So yeah, it's an interesting point actually. And this every sort of few days there's another article coming out about the hybrid working, and then workers being mandated to go back to office, and there's seems to be conflicting research. Some research says there's better productivity with the hybrid situation, others say there's better productivity when people are in the space. And I don't know that there's one size fits all. And I think what I really hope we see come out of COVID is at least flexibility around that, so that people have that choice. So if you are more productive, more engaged and happy in the office space, there's the opportunity to be there. But if you're really productive at home, we need that time where you can be at home because your kids are sick, or what have you, that there's more genuine flexibility around that. That's my hope anyway. And I think our young people, if anything, they expect flexibility over anything else. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Emma. We're at time, unfortunately. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I wish we could continue, and maybe we'll all off screen after all you lot go away. But yeah, thank you very much for this conversation. Thanks so much for your time. And everyone, again, there's an open letter. There's a QR code. I see a few of you have scanned it already. Thank you for that. And yeah, sort of, Emma, any closing thoughts, or any, I don't know, just closing thoughts, I suppose? Over to you.
Yeah, I think it just, if you're interested in the space, just keep an eye out on what we're doing. We have our LinkedIn page, and we update our website pretty regularly. So we've got some cool projects coming out just quickly touch on one of them. We're doing a framework for good youth employability, and we're connecting with a bunch of different stakeholders on that as well. So that's an exciting piece of work that's coming. So yeah, there's always new stuff. So do stay in touch. And sign up for our newsletter, and comes out once a month. We won't spam you, promise. But yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you, Baruch.
Thank you very much, Emma, and thank you everyone who's been watching. Hopefully this will be part of a series of conversations like this. So if you've been here, I'd love to hear feedback. I'd particularly love to hear about what do you think we should call this thing. Apparently what changes. I've been asked not to call it what change. So yeah, give me a better name, folks. But thank you very much, kia ora koutou, and we'll see you next time, maybe in a couple of weeks. Kia ora.